As much as Taiyo has had to deal with within such a short time frame, at some point you should expect to see the MC really begin to stand on business, and in this week's episode, he's on a roll in more ways than one. Between work or his relationship with Mutsumi, he's making everything count, and it's the culmination of all his efforts and success that takes him a long way down the line. So laying out the content coverage range, this week's episode covers the core parts of chapter 9, 12, and 14, pretty much keeping the core parts of said chapters intact. Of course, we had some small adjustments due to rearranged content in other places, but overall delivering on the crucial aspects when it comes to Taiyo's development with both new characters and Mutsumi. Now I briefly want to mention once again about how this episode avoids the episodic problem. We had a lot going on in one episode this week, but all content served a purpose and overall provides a much more engaging experience as the episode progressed. We were able to get a new character, some training, action, and romance all in one nice package, and it didn't feel jumbled. That to me is very important when looking at the series, given how it delivers its content even within the manga. Greatly appreciate the staff once again for being able to pull together core pieces of content and have them transition nicely into each other while aiming to only enhance the experience. Starting in order with the chapter 9 content, the kickoff of the episode happens a bit differently. With chapter 5 through 8 being removed at this current time, there is a natural ricochet into how things start, and so instead of coming to the school to get Taiyo like the chapter had, the new character catches him coming home from a mission most likely. As I said last week, that video on changes and whatnot will be coming, but for now keep that in your back pocket. Now this new character is named Sagei, and I'm sure to some people he may remind you of Aizawa from MHA, though arguably a bit more on the crazy side. A hammer as a signature weapon, let alone for a cop, is certainly a brutal choice of all time, but I think we know characters in this show are a bit quirky, so at this point you should kinda be unfazed. Now this whole ordeal is a test to see if Taiyo would crumble under pressure when his own safety and his family's safety is threatened by the law. We see Sagei having evidence of every major incident he's been a part of, which also was a change in this episode. In the chapter, Sagei approaches Taiyo because of the developments that happen in chapters 5 through 8, but you can see why it will be adjusted to this promptly. You can see that Sagei is really stacking the evidence up against him and even tries to apply truth serum in the most obvious way possible, but even that is not enough to crack Taiyo. Again, I know family will be memed, but even in the spy world, death is a lighter punishment compared to the repercussions of selling out the Yozakuras, and he recognizes that even when he can have his face bashed in. In conclusion, for Mutsumi's sake, this man will always stand on business, and his courage allows him to pass this test, as Kyoichiro was the one who really set it all up in the first place. In hindsight, it makes sense for somebody like him to have his own quirky group of friends, but it is nice to see how the spy world is entangled with members of the law to some degree. It's all about making new connections in this line of business, and right off the bat, Taiyo has made a new reliable ally who he will be working with down the line into bigger plot lines. Moving into chapter 12, I noticed that this episode really played it out smoothly in terms of making Taiyo exhausted. With him being picked up at night and then Kyoichiro making him go to school immediately after, we can probably assume that Taiyo is being tested for quite some time. His exhaustion kicking in real hard in the classroom, but what better time to push past your limits than when you're at them. Kyoichiro continues to be that fake teacher persona he's been undercover with, and this time is forcing Taiyo to learn about the half-sleep state. Its purpose is to help him remain alert even when his brain is half resting, so that he could react to anything in the event he gets attacked, and technically in this line of work, it isn't a bad skill to have. What is bad though is affecting the entire class with Nanao's drug in order to pull it off. Back in school, you'd get crucified for falling asleep in the middle of class, but this time around, I think everyone got a free pass. Between the Morse code usage to communicate and Taiyo having to fight for his life from deadly throws of chalk, the middle section was a bit of half and half. Some training and some laughs, but again, it's all for his and Mutsumi's sake. Now it is worth noting that there was a lot of fluff removed in between the beginning of this segment of the episode and the point where Kyoichiro used Nanao's drug. Before it got to that particular point, Kyoichiro does a few other methods to try to make Taiyo fall asleep. Hitting some pressure points, using some strong sleeping cologne, and these do add on some more humor to the situation, but doesn't entirely rob the content either just because it is absent. Of course, if you'd like to go back and read that content, then chapter 12 is the place to be, that way you can get the full picture. Now finally and easily the best section of the episode episode, we have the mission date content, which pretty much covers the entirety of chapter 14. On a personal note for me, I do wish that some of the more manga content had made it into the episode. Some early bits of that chapter are really nice, and it really gives them mature husband and wife energy, but with the amount of content that was put into this episode total, I do understand that sacrifices had to be made. The details in question are mainly Mutsumi making Taiyo some medicine, and Taiyo is bandaging himself up while he does read that romance magazine, but again, not the end of the world. What would be the end of the world though is if Taiyo and Mutsumi were to get a divorce. With all that has been going on lately outside of school, there hasn't been too many moments that has allowed the two to really have some private romantic time, and considering Taiyo has never dated, let alone married before till now, he can't get too lax. Now unfortunately, missions take priority as instructed by Sagei to go track down this couple that has illegal firearms, but thankfully this is a mission that Mutsumi's presence can also benefit from. To identify the corrupt couple, you must first be the couple, and Taiyo and Mutsumi are able to have themselves a quality date while also working to complete the mission. With so many enemies constantly targeting Mutsumi, it's probably rare that Mutsumi would ever get to do something like this, so this mission serves as knocking out 3 birds with 1 stone. The culprit is caught, Mutsumi can get romantic reassurance, and Taiyo can accomplish everything needed all at the same time. I think for all the shippers and fans of genuine appreciation for the couple, this was your favorite part of the episode. It was entertaining to see the chase for the culprit while also the two trying to enjoy their date, and honestly, it can't get much cuter than that. With the focus of the series being about their relationship, I had no doubt that this was going to make its way into the anime just fine. There are so many more chapters like this on the horizon, a lot of which I expect to see anime-only editions, but for the most part, this week's episode was pretty light on additions and rather more changes if anything. I've seen a couple of people point it out on social media too, but Taiyo not having much dating experience really shows this episode with some of his blunders, but I think that's the fun in all of it as well. Plans may not always go perfect, and a lot of times it's about trial and error before you perfect what works for your relationship, and we see Taiyo just try to make it work without forgetting the mission objective. The two highlights of this part of the episode being the action with the culprits and of course the romantic ride to close things out. Now the action of the episode moved quite well, but on top of that, there really seems to be some creative choices going on with the yae. If you slow it down enough, there are actually a couple of cool colors and frames to pull from this one shot, and I think that's a cool addition. Of course, it may not be like that all the time, but if we go back to the OP, even that shot had some nice colors to it, so it's nice to see it make its way into the anime in some way. I'd also like to mention that when Taiyo gets upset, his tone really locks in on the moment, and it almost resembles Deku in a way where it feels like a different type of beast has awoken inside of him. If we're getting this type of stuff now, then I cannot wait till the intense fights begin. To wrap it up, we finally have our Ferris wheel ride, and the art in that scene was given some really nice focus. Between the line work and just the overall scenery, a perfect mood was set for Taiyo to really win the day by giving Mutsumi a rose. One way or another, he was going to get Mutsumi that rose, and between the delivery and the reaction, cute is the only way to describe it. Of course, Kyoichiro's reaction was expected, but alas, cope and seethe. Overall, Taiyo made some steady progress in multiple areas this week, and the early series groundwork is continuing to be laid out in batches, in which I still believe that once the ball gets rolling heavily, things will be a lot more intense for the long term. All circumstances considered, a very nice episode for Yozakura family this week, arguably the best one yet in terms of just content and presentation. I can already see where we're going come next week, and trust me, you won't be prepared for the next character introduction. With that, ladies and gentlemen, is gonna do it for me. As always, thank you very much for watching, and make sure to leave all your thoughts about today's episode in the comment section down below. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you all next Sunday for episode 6.